All right, good evening, ladies and gents. I take it that you have in actual fact had a look at either the video that I recorded at the previous meeting, or at least had a look at the preliminary disaster preparedness document that I did, which is a general outline of basically, what I did is I utilized Constantia Kloof as the guinea pig in order to determine which way to move forward following the completion of a 2-year to almost 2.5-year writing of the disaster area damage assessment training manual, that is. So I'm not going to go through my history or the background again. As I say, that video is available. If you guys have any problems hearing me, or it starts breaking up or anything, just let me know and I'll drop the video. I'm not going to go back and do a complete, background history and pedigree and everything else over again. You guys can always, go and have a look at the video that I've posted on the YouTube channel. You can share it with not only your association Blockwatch forum members, share it far and wide. You can share it with your local communities. I think at the end of the day, it's going to be beneficial to everybody all round. Up front, for the record, I do need to stipulate that disaster relief CERT is not looking at doing away or duplicating any other services, whether that be an RA or RF, Neighborhood Watch, Blockwatch, or otherwise. I've got a very specific purpose that I'm looking at setting as a goal moving forward, and that is one. Well, it's actually multifold. The first one, of course, is to prepare volunteers to be able to assist local communities in times of disaster. So just give me 1 sec. Control Echo 1, quick break over. Okay, thanks. Control, just check with 1011 or find somebody that can do control tomorrow night for me, please. Over. All right, sorry about the interruption there, guys. Let them go on with their testing and everything else. So basically, I've got a couple of goals moving forward. The first one is to prepare. That's a 7-year-old that's busy calling in there at the moment. The first thing is to prepare volunteers to be able to assist in times of disaster. We're not a first responder organization, but we also have a legal obligation to, in actual fact, create awareness amongst communities. And this is now where you guys come into play in particular. In order for us as an organization, or myself as an individual, or even as a ordinary volunteer within any organization, to be able to reach out to the multiple households, businesses, residents within any particular area could in actual fact be quite tiresome, cumbersome, and very drawn out process overall. And I firmly believe that RFs, RAs, neighborhood watchers, block watchers, etc., will play a twofold, or should in actual fact play a twofold role in terms of disaster risk reduction, number one. And then most definitely number two, in times of a actual disaster. And there we start looking at how you fit in within the entire disaster management cycle process overall. Even though your primary goal and function is not disaster response or relief related, each of you have a constitution of sorts. You've got common goals. You've got a sole and principal object that needs to be accomplished, to which your own membership will subscribe to. Which your own membership subscribes to in terms of paying a membership fee. And therefore, you as an association or organization, I think, just to round it off, you as an organization have an obligation to your members and the membership base itself. And this is now where Disaster Relief CERT wants to plug in. Firstly, especially when we come to the part of Florida, of block watches, neighborhood watches, and CPFs. The guys that are attracted into the membership are those that are, you know, after the adrenaline rush, etc., etc. They got the guts, they got the balls, they got the drive to get up there and to go and do something, even though they understand that there could be some danger aspect to it. And that is across the board, male, female, and from all ages, legally from the age of 16 upwards. What I foresee as a problem, going back on my background, is you get the people that are joining your organizations, but they got families. And 9 times out of 10, if not 9.9, 99% of the time, the families start to feel left out. And those are the people that I would like to ask, firstly, for organizations such as yourselves to bring those family members in under the fold of disaster relief CERT. And as I said at the last meeting, even if they want to go join Red Cross or Give to the Givers, I don't mind. Let's get them in somewhere. That way, while you guys are running around there playing cowboys and Indians, as some people term you, or John Wayne's, or whatever the case might be, your family could be involved. Even your teenage children over the age of 16 can be involved. Because within the disaster risk reduction, firstly, but more specifically within the disaster management cycle and the disaster relief aspect that needs to be undertaken, there are many, many facets of the operation that even a 16-year-old can, in actual fact, get involved with. And a lot of people will say to me, no, Chad, you're totally mad, dude. You've lost the plot and all the rest of it. No, I haven't. A 16-year-old, just to give you an example, during a major relief operation, a call could go out for the supply of water, like we saw now recently with the Lisbon building fire, or like we experienced at Red Cross in terms of the KZN flooding of the late 80s. We ended up with a mountain of clothing that was donated in Joburg, and we were still based across the road from the old drill hall. And our hall must have been a good, I'd say, 25, 30 meters high, which was packed to the ceiling, literally, with just our people walked in and dumped. And they dumped, and they dumped. And we brought in a whole lot of the guys from the drill hall to come and help pack. So a 16-year-old is able to pick up something, hold it, put it in a box. So never underestimate that one at all. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I need to throw out to you guys as an organization is to have a look at how you would in actual fact fit in within DRR, or disaster risk reduction, and specifically disaster relief efforts overall. And in order to do that, the very first thing, look, this is a very broad subject. I could in actual fact take you just through the disaster damage assessment training manual. That's about 32 hours of one-on-one training or one-on group. But there's probably going to be another 40 or 50 hours of practical work behind that manual. And all of that manual takes every single person through risk analysis and hazard vulnerability assessments, and how to report on it, and how to gather the data, and where to find the data, and to document the data so that we can send that up to a disaster management center. Now, if you take a look at your residence forums, your residence associations in particular, body corporates is another one. Let's give you an idea with body corps. Body corps actually need to comply with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Not many body corporates know that. Not many trustees know that. Yet, if their OH is up to date and up to scratch, they have already formed a fair bit of analysis within a very small area. Now, if you take Constantia Drive, for example, with all those complexes down there, I mean, there's what, about 20 different complexes in total, maybe less. Let's just round it off at 20. If 20 of them have got a properly documented occupational health and safety plan in place, that's right down to an evacuation plan to street level. Just think of how much has already been accomplished through a simple task like that. And what I wanted to do on this particular meeting, and I don't want to go on for much longer because I would like to open the floor up for some conversation, but to throw out to you the following, that you can take to your members, whether you're a neighborhood watch, a block watch, residents association, forum, or even a body corporate. Where do you think you fit in terms of disaster relief and assistance? That is a question that I think the leaders of these organizations need to put to their membership. Now, through various means of communication, whether it be via WhatsApp group, whether it be via a newsletter, or at a monthly meeting, depending on how your organization is constituted. You might meet once a month, or you might meet once every 6 months, because of the fact that we are at a point where we need to start planning and preparing. I'd actually call, if I was part of an organization, a special general meeting and ask the question, where do we as an organization fit into the disaster risk reduction and the disaster relief and assistance aspect of disaster management? That is something that the members need to have their imagination stretched. I'm not saying you must give them the answer. That's not how I do training. I like to stretch the imagination, let people think. How do you fit in? And then come back to the table. And that is where we can have a much broader meeting on Zoom, and they can also attend the meeting and have input. Because it is during those Q&As that a lot of the training will in actual fact come into play. And I think that is where a lot of people are going to sit back and say, well, you know, maybe we do need to get involved. So how do we get involved? Well, I'm not going to join the Blockwatch. I'm not going to join the neighborhood watch. Others are going to say, I'll join the neighborhood watch. I'll join a Blockwatch. I'm all for it. And the more people that you guys get on board, the better it is from a security perspective. But Chad, you're losing the plot. What has the security perspective got to do with disaster risk reduction or disaster management and disaster relief and disaster assistance? Actually, it's got a hell of a lot to do with it. That's the second question that needs to be put to your members. Because of the fact that at the moment I've reached out to the guys within Region C, within the Constantia Kloof and surrounds area, as a community, and that includes Witpoortjie, Discovery, Florida, Vleerhof, all the way through to Rivoli. You know, Rivoli is only 10 kilometers away. Eh? Qualarina, how many k's is that? About 6 or 7 k's down the road, give or take. So we're in a very, very small circle, 10, 15 kilometer radius of Constantia Kloof, as virtually parts of Region C, and I think the other one is Region, let me have a look, see, Region C, B, D, and a little bit of F. We got approximately 300, maybe 400,000 residents amongst us here that need to be taken care of. So how's this playing on the security role? And I know now the RAs and RFs are saying, but that doesn't apply to us. Actually, it does. Because as an RA and RF, when you speak into your members, encourage them to get their husbands, their wives, sorry, my apologies, or whatever, to join the neighborhood watch, to join the CPF, to join the block watch. Why? Well, let's have a look at what happened in KZN 2 years ago. We've just celebrated 2 years. Let's have a look and see what's happening in Tshwane right now, today. The city is under siege. I'll share the video that the mayor put out this morning, that you guys can listen to what's being said there. And you need to go to your members, and I have a habit of saying you need to go. In other words, I'm sitting here not telling you or instructing you, but that's the ultimate recommendation. One thing you guys are going to learn about me, I don't beat about the bush. I beat the bush, it is more fun. And the more time that we waste bickering, the more lives that can be lost. I'm not into that at all. I get very aggro when the potential risk of life is sitting right there and there was a way to prevent it. So this is the stuff that needs to go to your membership. Get them on board with a Blockwatch. Get them on board CPF Neighborhood Watch. Why? KZN rioting. We've got it at the moment in Pretoria. The first thing that needs to be done for our community is food security needs to be taken care of, and water security needs to be taken care of. Never mind evacuation and first aid and firefighting and all the rest of it. It's irrelevant because the city can burn. Without food and water, you're going to die. But with a burned city, you can still live. You know, I look at it this way, that if a disaster were to come through Constantia Kloof, I tell the volunteers here that I've got, the very few, in Constantia Kloof, I don't give a continental what happens to you. It's not my concern. If a tornado rips through Constantia Kloof, I mustn't worry about my volunteers or the volunteers, organizations' volunteers. They're probably dead. I need to be able to concentrate on the volunteers in Honey Hills and Rudderkrans and Discovery and Florida North, Florida Cliff on Deckers Park. You are the guys that are going to have to come in and help us in Constantia Kloof, who are not dead. 10-1, if that comes through, that tornado comes through our area, we are not going to be in a position to actually undertake the hazard assessment and hazard vulnerability assessment at the level I would like it to be. So whichever way we look at it, from the disaster relief CERT or the disaster relief and assistance aspect, we need you, like Uncle Sam would say. But we also need Blockwatch members. We need Neighborhood Watch members. We need CPF members that are going to complement and supplement the private security industry. Think of it this way, just between here and Qualarina, how many shopping centers are there on Deckers Road? Let's not even include at this moment in time Clearwater Mall, or for that matter, Northgate. How many security personnel are going to be required during times of rioting to secure those premises? And that's what I want to put on the table tonight for each and every organization that watches this video, to go back and ask these difficult questions. And I know you're going to get a lot of kickback. 2 years ago, I put a message out on the Constantia Kloof group with a photograph of that mountainside that had given away in KZN. And I said, look, guys, this could be Constantia Kloof. You know, we got a ridge line running from the other side of Northcliffe all the way through to the Machalis. Can happen anywhere. And people came back to me and told me I literally need to see a doctor. Am I mad? There's too much rock here. This is a mountain. It's made of rock. It's not going to come down. But what a lot of people don't realize, we had a mudslide now between the 9th and the 14th of December 2022 on this ridge line. There are 7 complexes or 7 units within a single complex that have been evacuated because the mud encroached inside of the premises. Fortunately, there was no structural collapse. But at 11 o'clock at night, while people were sleeping, that mud came through the kitchen windows. And that could have brought the building down. Worse yet, another 24 hours of rain like we saw on the 9th and 10th of December last year, that entire section of the ridge line could have collapsed and ended up in Weltevreden Park. How many people could have been killed? And this is why I feel this massive urge to reach out to you guys and ask you, take it to your members and ask the difficult questions. Feel free to ask me and you can follow up with them, or feel free to set up a Zoom meeting, one organization at a time. To be quite honest, probably be easier, get everybody up on at one time. And then we can do a Saturday morning, we can do a full workshop on it. So, in closing, Where do you fit in terms of disaster risk and reduction, or disaster risk and reduction plus disaster relief and assistance? Is the question that needs to be answered. Then the second thing that needs to come into play, and I know I use 3 fingers for that, but the second thing that needs to come into play is what type of training would be required? And then the third one, of course, training is going to have a cost implication in the same way equipment has got a cost implication. Blockwatches, neighborhood watches, CPFs. You guys have got to go high visibility. If you're out in the street and you got no high vis, I tell you what, you should be taken off of the road. You should be smacked alongside the ear roll, and you should be put in the corner with a dunce cap on, because you will get killed out. That means RAs, RFs, members of your community, residents, people of your community. You guys have got to support these people, man. And now I'm not talking to RAs, and I'm definitely not going to be talking to RFs and block watches and neighborhood watches. I want to talk to you, the resident yourself, directly. And I want to say to you, you guys need to support your teams in your community, in your area, which is for the benefit of your life, your family, and your loved ones. If they need high visibility vests, like I've just said now, sponsor them. Help them out. Don't make donations. These are the guys, and I know this because I owned an armed response company. I've been shot at. I've been tear gassed, and even as a Red Cross operations manager, I've still been shot at. I know what it's like. Residents of the communities, my appeal to you, as a director of a non-government organization specializing in disaster relief and management, you need to reach out and support your communities. And if you are not supporting your communities through your RAs and RFs, if you are supporting them, you need to start tabling motions within your RAs and RFs and find out what, and I know the committee members, RAs and RFs, will probably want to shoot me for this statement. It's your membership fees. The RA belongs to you, not to the committee. It belongs to you, the members. And now's the opportunity. You are authorizing those committees to undertake specific tasks. Give them an extra one. Tell them to find a way to actually buy vests, bibs, radios, torches. Even sponsor the petrol that the patrollers are using. You know, and again, everybody says, yeah, but what's this got to do with disaster relief? It's simple. If those guys on the road are not prepared and properly equipped, and I bring in an operation in an area, I'm not going to include them in my planning because they're useless to me. They are actually more of a danger to my operation than they are anything else. And that's a harsh thing to say, but I've been there. I've been there. And at the end of the day, support them now, because it is their training today for an event that can happen tomorrow. We already know the Zama attacks here on Main Reef Road, Rivoli to Vleerhof. Actually, it's even further down, down to Witpoortjie even. There's a lot of activity there. We know it's happening out in Randfontein, Krugersdorp area and all the rest of it. It's on our doorstep, ladies and gentlemen. Residents of the communities around us, don't take this for granted. Don't take this for granted. This thing can go sideways very, very quickly. And in terms of the unemployment rate, in terms of the lack of electricity and everything else, more and more people are becoming desperate. All of these, what we term informal settlements today that are popping up all around us, are becoming a risk. And it's not just a security risk. There's one thing I personally am very grateful for, the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction entity introducing the Sendai framework and actually bringing in civil unrest as one of the perils in terms of disasters. And we need to consider the potential risk, and the risk level is high, of unrest in and around our areas, and it can start in one place and it can spread like wildfire. The block watchers, the neighborhood watchers, and the CPFs have got a specific role to play here. The private security industry have got a separate role to play, but just as vital within the constraints of the law within which they operate. That is why I'm reaching out to the security companies as well. So for now, I've reached out to the ones that are local. The other areas, those security company managers need to make contact with me so that we can start looking at how they are going to fit in. Because from my perspective, I also need to accept and understand that they can be seconded to the SAP service as a whole. And that falls under a totally different ball game altogether. But we still need an integration between all for the benefit of all. So, how do you fit in the plan? What are you guys prepared to do? Many factors that I've brought up. What are you guys prepared to do? How are you going to support each other? How are you going to bring in your volunteers? What do you think you should do? Ask yourselves what training is needed. You don't need to be firemen and first aiders. We can train you up to become evacuation shelter managers and assistants. Even there, think of it this way. Something happens in this area, it can happen in Florida. Florida itself, the suburb is 35,000 people according to the census. 35,000 people come under attack like Riverlea comes under attack. You guys don't know what it's like to lose a population of 80,000 overnight. I lost 80,000 people overnight in Zonkazizwe under threat of an attack from the IFP in the late 80s. We spent 2 days in the air searching the whole of what is now known as Gauteng, then Southern Transvaal, looking for 80,000 people that were displaced, that we knew women and children and elderly needed food, blankets, and other medicaments. We couldn't find them. To this day, I don't know where they got hidden, but they were hidden. So that happens, and 30,000 people walk out of Florida. Where they're going to go? Your churches, your school buildings, your everything. We need people that are going to be prepared to stand up and say, look, I want to be trained to be able to manage this. And not only that, block watchers, guys, seriously, dude, let me put it to you this way, to the guys specifically. Your wife or your daughter has now decided, yes, I'm going to help out at that shelter. And off they go. And they're busy writing their names and everything of the people that are coming in. And next thing, that shelter's under attack because it's just become a target for theft. You see why we need block watchers, neighborhood watchers, CPFs, private security service providers, and SAPs and the SADF plus the entire state security agency. More importantly, we need to know who's going to play what role when. Just in a simple evacuation shelter, are you prepared to let your daughter go there without being protected? Then you've got to consider something else. During an actual natural disaster, you might be in work, Sandton, Germiston, the Vaal, I don't know. You can't get back into this area, but your family might be in the area. You're going to have to rely on Blockwatch, neighborhood watch, patrollers from Horizon to protect your family here in Florida. Florida North, who else have I got you? Florida Park, Radiaco. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Give you something to think about. I'm going to open the floor up now for the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then we can shut down. I think everybody still needs to prepare for load shedding, block 15 and block 11 again off, if I remember correctly. I know 11 is. But I think for this part of the session, I need to leave it at that. And of course, when I make the video available, share it. I don't expect you as a leader, or even as even if you're not a leader of your organization, if you are just a straightforward member of your organization, I honestly cannot expect you to answer the questions. because if you could answer the questions, you wouldn't be on this meeting. You would have actually said to me, Chad, this and this and this. How do we plug this in? Because that's the next session we're going to have a look at after everybody has opened up the conversation on a community level. Now, how do we plan? Because that's ultimately where we need to go. We need to have a plan. We can't just sit back and say, well, yeah, it's not going to happen. In my disaster assessment, out of 4,500 in Constantia Kloof, my calculation says 4,000 people will die during a natural disaster like an earthquake or a tornado ripping through the top of the mountain. So on that terrible thought, I'm now going to be silent. I'm not going to continue being the old pot stirrer. As I said previously, my radio amateur call sign is ZS6 OPS, and it doesn't mean old pot stirrer. It's actually old Papa Smurf. I just haven't got my blue jacket on tonight or scrubs on tonight. Let's open it up. Anybody got questions? Let's start at the bottom as I see it on screen. Rodney, hello.
Hi, Chad. Yeah, I've got no questions. Just listening with interest or whatever, obviously learning as we go. Everything you say makes sense. But yeah, there's a lot of egos involved with all these community patrollers and organizations or whatever. So however in their life are you ever going to get everybody to listen to one specific person? I think that's my biggest concern. I mean, I've got little street groups going. I can communicate with my direct Florida South resident associations. And even with me having those type of groups or whatever, they don't even read everything you put on there anyway. You know, so I mean, you put a lot of important information out there, and yet the next day they still come back and ask you, what about this? In the meantime, you've answered it last night. So yeah, it's a very difficult thing. I think the most important thing is about info. And that's what we're trying to do with street groups, to provide info, what's going and happening around your area. So not really a question, but just a general comment, I think, from my side.
Yeah, no, that's an extremely valid point that you've made there, Rodney. It's a major issue. And Ralph was here. I think Ralph is the one that dropped off, actually. He's on my Constantia Kloof group. I don't know if anybody else is. I mean, I'm under daily attack, literally daily attack on that group. The egos, as you say, I've actually brought it down to a term in the assessment. I call it a closed group syndrome. You know, the administrators, and I've raised this concern with disaster management COJ, with the director himself personally at the meeting that I held in, when was it, April. And I've said to him that the social media administrators are the ones that are going to be responsible for the highest number of residents being killed through whatever situation or event arises. And it's purely because of the fact that, and I know that, you know, you guys might be administrators, and there again, we've got to reach out and we've got to say, listen, you've got to open the doors. Whether you agree with the narrative, whether you agree with anything that's been said, it's ultimately at the end of the day not your right to block the flow of information to the residents. And I'm not talking to you guys now specifically on the meeting. I'm actually speaking to every single WhatsApp administrator countrywide. As an administrator, and I've just put it out on our Constantia Kloof group on Sunday, it took four hours of, let's call it training on the Poppy Act, civil rights, and all the rest of it. As administrators, you've got no right to block the flow of information to your members. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Gabby, anything from your side? Okay, Gabby, still mute. There we go.
Yeah, sorry. Hi.
Okay.
Obviously, we've got to take it back to the association and, just get their thoughts and see how the channel of information works. So, they are keen to participate. So we just need to see who would be that person. I'm happy to sort of play that role. I am sort of I've done my Sheikh medical training. So that could be mine, and I could possibly help with the flow of information. But as I said, I'm not mandated to make decisions. I need to take it back to the association.
Absolutely agreed 100%, which is why through the video, you'll be able to share that with them as well. Sorry, you were still saying.
100%.
No,
100%.
Because I know that it gets a little bit sticky sometimes when a representative sits in front of the membership and says, we had this meeting and this was said, and then people say, well, why was that said? How was that said? And then you guys can't answer it. And as I said, I don't expect that. Gabby, anything else from your side?
Nothing at the moment. As I said, let me sort of pose it to the board, and then we'll come back to you.
Good stuff. Thanks. Sia, how are you? Go ahead. I know you came in a bit late, but any questions so far? You still muted? Sorry, guys, I'm not squint. I got the teleprompter in front of me, but I watch the Zoom screen participants on the left and then follow the messages on the right. Sia, do you want to unmute? All right, not there. Let's move on. Cindy Lee.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. We're going to have a meeting on Monday, and I'll mention it in our meeting. Do you have like a little advert or something to draw volunteers or people that you want to volunteer that we could post on our groups? Or is it just all the information that you've been sending us? Because it's a lot of reading stuff. So do you have anything that's like consolidated that people will read quickly?
Listen, I said old pot stirrer means old Papa Smurf, not KFC takeaways.
I know, but I know how people are. They're just going to see something. You need to have like an advert or something that's going to catch them and make them read it. It's the world we live in.
Have you guys all got your WhatsApp open? I'm going to go to Casper now.
Okay, that's all.
Now, why did that not come up? There we go. Now it came up. And here's another one. Quickly look at that. Casper, anything from your side? Cindy, sorry, anything else from your side? Let me ask you.
No, nothing at the moment. I know that when I have got, I will chat to you.
Okay, cool. Casper,
thanks.
Pleasure. Casper.
Hi, Chad. In our area, we're quite involved with our community. End of August, we have a community day at Flora World School, where we invite the community at the Flora Park Blockwatch Day. So there's and once a month we will do what we call a Flora Blockwatch Patrollers Day or night, for that matter, to go through the whole area. But yes, I'm with you, what you're saying. Also, I need to get back to my committee or to my group, and I need to actually take this video and play this video to them, that they can understand what we are talking about. Then it will make more sense to them, because I've already mentioned it in a previous meeting. And as you say, I had some people told me, yeah, but we need to look after our own area. And I don't agree fully. As you say, we need to look after the areas around us as well.
No, sorry, I got a smile. The minute that you said, I have to look after our own area, I thought of me saying, look, guys, my area is probably going to be dead. I don't care about them. It's terrible. It really is. But it's factual. The thing is this, Casper, that just on that point, I don't mean to interrupt, but just on that point, yeah, they have to. That's the very first thing. And you'll find when I actually do training, family comes first. Your safety comes first. So you got to look out for yourself first. And then if if you still got all 10 fingers and toes, and your family is safe, then and only then. And that's in all three of our manuals that we have developed. Anything else from your side, Casper?
No, as I say, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'll get back to my group and relate what we've talked about tonight, and then I'll get back to you.
No, fantastic. Now, as you guys know, I also started that disaster relief CERT water crisis relief WhatsApp group. And I've extended it. I've actually created a general community group. So there's one for Constantia, one for Discovery, one for here, one for there, one for everywhere else. But I've plugged it all in under what's called a Greater Johannesburg Community Group. And the reason that I'd like to introduce this is not to recreate any other groups that you might have. I know somebody said they got street groups and everything else, which is great. What I want to do with these general community groups is like I did with the water group. The water group, I threw it out citywide, specifically because of the fact it was a Rand Water, Joburg Water issue. And I invited some of the councillors to come on board and to share information. Now, statistically speaking, I distributed something like 250 info packs. That was a one-on-one WhatsApp message where up to 35 documents were sent out to the people as they joined and they requested. We had an average of 25 official reports being posted by the handful of city councillors to the group. I had just on 1,000 people on and off of the group during a 7-day period, really. The first 3 days was just a build-up, but from that Tuesday virtually through until the Sunday, so 8 days, almost 1,000 people came up on the group. And what I've decided to do is to break it down into these little segments on a suburb-by-suburb basis. But at the top of it, we've got the Greater Johannesburg Group. Now, the Greater Johannesburg Group, as members join their respective area, and then, of course, they might have family in another area, they can plug in there. And that is where the crucial, critical, relevant information, not the general chat, not the general, I got, sewage running down my street type of communication. All of those little groups continue just as if nothing else had happened. But taking it up onto the higher level, there's the community group. So I'll post it out on the info side, share it with the people. Look, 24 hours and I'm over 500 people up on the community already. What it means is that when we have a disaster or mass event, major event that needs to get information pumped out through the Greater Johannesburg community group, which will be the first one. It can hold, I think, up to 5,000 people. I send one message and I hit 5,000 people one time as disaster relief CERT. But let's say, for example, Casper, you phoned me and said to me, Chad, the Zamas have just walked into the Florida Park Blockwatch. I'm going to say to you, why phone me? Put it out on the Florida Park General Community Group. And that there can be made up of everybody. It must be a quiet group. It doesn't have to be something that's monitored and, posts and that are there on a daily basis. And it doesn't need to interfere with your residents association groups or RF groups or any other group. It's purely something sitting on the sideline here for disaster risk reduction and disaster relief and assistance. That's all, nothing more. It sits on the side, but the community plugs into it. And the community can go and share stuff there. That's not a problem. I mean, we, let them get used to the group, and then they can come back to your RA or Blockwatch group and they can share something there or whatever the case might be. So I'll send that post out. Once I'll put the Joburg Region C group on WhatsApp, and then you'll see it's part of the bigger community. And when you click on that, all the other areas are listed, and guys can just join as they see fit. All I want to do through the groups is open up a communication channel, and it has to be a communication channel that does not interfere with your group, whatever your group might be. And it's not to replace your group. Your group must continue to operate as normal. This is just sitting here at the top somewhere, and it'll be utilized as and when needed. Okay, I think that's it. I said I would come back to that when Rodney brought up the issue about egos and all the rest of it. Doing it this way, Rodney, I don't like hands up, eh? Jeez, I haven't got a gun to your head. Go ahead, Rodney.
Thanks, Jed. Okay, how about us giving you some homework?
Go for it.
So, as you know, these WhatsApp groups all got survey polls and stuff now.
Yeah.
So how about you coming up with some questions that will try and entice these residents of ours, and we have a poll and answer the relevant questions that you might have. Important questions.
I do it on a daily basis on the Constantia Kloof group, well, weekly anyway.
So if you do a poll, for instance, who's ready for disaster? What are you going to do when the Zamazamas come in your area? Little things like that. And let's get them interactive and point them to some sort of general idea, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah, as I said, I do that on the Constantia Kloof group, and then they flip me upside down for it, seriously. And when you go through that light reading that I gave you on the assessment, 57 pages, you'll see I actually make a statement there that less than 10% of your group actually respond or participate in the group. So, my group on Constantia Kloof, or not my group, the Constantia Kloof group is 460 people. I'm lucky if I get 20 people responding. But the majority of the others that don't respond actually do see the poll and take cognizance of what's going on. So when I do it on the Constantia Kloof group, I'm going to throw it out on the info group. I'll probably move you guys over to a separate group and open up my info for info purposes yet again. Then I'll throw it out on that group, and then you can pick that same poll up and send it out on your guys' side. How does that sound, Rodney?
I think that's a great idea. We can do that and get some feedback from the community as well. Obviously, the other 80% of the people that doesn't respond is because the shit hasn't hit the home yet, so that's why they're not responding. So, when you're in trouble, then you start responding. So,
yeah, that's exactly it.
And then it's too late anyway.
And then you've also got the crowd that mute the group because they get too noisy sometimes, and then they mute it for a week, and then they don't go back and watch the messages. Which is why I want to reach out to, guys like yourselves, so that you can talk to your members during your meetings, and they can talk to the next door neighbor, and slowly we'll break it down. Slowly. Progress has been made in the last 3 months here, let me tell you. Okay, anything else from anybody else? Don't put your hands up. I got paper in my hand, not a Magnum 357. Any questions? Shall we call it a night and bid you farewell and all the other good stuff. I'm going to go get some hot chocolate and go crawl up in bed now. Gabby, not funny. Ladies and gents, I want to say thank you. I really appreciate it, even though it might be in small numbers. I think the others will come up as time goes by, and especially if they are watching the video. I'll make the video available again tomorrow on YouTube. And then you're more than welcome to share it with anybody and all of the other videos as well, including the MCOM PDY Limited community emergency radio network that I'm rolling out as well. That one, that just opens up a totally different ball game, purely because of the fact that the radio network that I do supply from the MCOM perspective has been operational in parts of Health Freedom Park for 3.5 years. I had to close down on the IT side to concentrate on the radio side. But it'll actually plug in with other registered CERT volunteers as well as within disaster management circles. In addition to that, during the testing phase of Constantia Kloof, in the Constantia Kloof and surrounding areas, I've actually got test radio equipment out in Weltevreden Park, Kloofendal, Noordheuwel, Discovery, down Florida hillside, that way, Florida, on Deckers Park. But I've also got radios in at Dowry. Dowry's got 2 handhelds, one at the control room and one on the vehicle patrolling Constantia Kloof. I got one on Beagle Watch's vehicle. I got one on Help 24 Secure's vehicle with Sean. And then I got 2 with Emergency Control SA, the Firefighting Association team here. So these are things that it's all in preparation for I come from a radio comms background, going back 40 years. So that is something else that we also need to look at moving forward. I just want to do it in closing, so that people are going to ask the question, what happens when we don't have cells, internet and electricity? Again, it's something the communities need to buy in on. I will send the advert that I'm putting out. My idea from MCOM's perspective is for every 100 radios that come up on service, I'll give 2 back to the community for the patrollers. So the more people, and the idea is it's going to be simplex based. We're not going to rely on repeaters, especially if we're looking at unrest where they're going to take out all the high sites and radio towers and radio masts and all the rest of it. But that we will discuss at another time. I will send that that advert out now on the info group as well before I shut down, so that you get an idea. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much, and we'll catch you at the next meeting, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. We'll see how it goes.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you, everybody. Keep warm. Go and have your hot
Yeah.
chocolate.
Thanks, everybody. See you guys.
Cheers,
Have a
guys.
good night. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Catch you later.